Well, you thought D18 was a party. You better get ready for the after party. This is where the fun really starts. My co-host, Sabrina Salas-Mentanani. Let's get right into it and introduce our panelists. The chairman of the Republican Party of Guam, Mr. Jerry Crisostomo. From the University of Guam, he's a poli-sci instructor, Mr. Ken Kuper.
Hey.
And from Free Association, Adrian Cruz.
Off a day.
All right, so right off the bat, I think the phrase of the night was human organisms.
Yeah.
Jerry, I got to ask you, Kenjo is definitely an out-of-the-box candidate for the Republican Party. You know, he's got that lineage, right? A lot of people in Jotnia, I mean, he ran a good, term as mayor. Right. And, he's definitely, I think he was Valley of his graduating class at UOG. Right. So you're a very intelligent guy. What does he say about the new types of candidates that you guys are growing?
Yeah, so Kenjo is he's an extraordinary out of the box candidate, and with a crop of 19 Republicans running, and his coin phrase of human organism. I think he just phrased the new HR, the new human resources as human organism. But Kenjo, overall, he's well educated. He's got a master's degree. He's got a bachelor's. Former mayor of Jotnia, so he's got grassroots political experience in the village. And I think he can take a lot of those ideas that he brought up today into the legislature. Right. He has a good point. He's talking about how do we survive outside of the federal monies, and because you're seeing the cuts get deeper and deeper with the Trump administration. He's in there for another 2 years. He's probably going to be reelected, and if so, there's going to be less and less federal dollars coming to our way. So he's got a good idea. He says, how do we survive as an island community outside of these federal monies? So he has a good point.
He does. Yeah, and I feel like the Republicans should maybe go to D.C. and start, lobbying your president.
Yeah, that's your man.
Absolutely.
You were our Gazu when you talking it to us so hard.
Yeah. It's just like when he was elected in January of 2017, and he said he's going to build a wall and he's going to cut taxes. I think we went to sleep here in Guam. There's no reason the administration and the legislature are fighting about the budget. They knew this guy when he got sworn in that he's going to cut taxes. Yeah. Every other state in the country loves the tax cuts because it was more money in people's pockets and businesses' pockets. They spend it. They got a new tax base. Right. And we should have done the same thing here.
Yeah, and I think it was really interesting. There wasn't a lot of tension on the couch with two Democrats and Kenjo a Republican, and hopefully we can see more of that reflected in the current leadership, at least for the rest of the year. What do you guys think of Senator Regina Bisco-Lee?
Well, she obviously is the most polished of all the candidates. She's an incumbent candidate. She's a smart lady, that's for sure. She dresses the part, and I think that the people she has over her career in this past term, she hasn't made any big waves. She hasn't done anything that would sour the public's image of her, and so she carries herself as a senator, and I think the people are probably going to carry her on.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I thought she did very well. If I was a viewer at home, we're talking about the look of concern on her face seems genuine when she talks about problems.
Right.
Eyebrow
game is strong with that one.
Right. Seems like a very genuine candidate.
Yeah.
Relatable.
Yeah, relatable.
Mother
absolutely.
too. Yeah.
And I mean, kind of your, not your enemy or whatever, but she's the Democratic Party chair.
She's my counterpart.
She's a counterpart, right? And so, just looking into that from that angle, I want to ask you this: you being the Republican Party chair, I know you've been with the party, you're a party man a long time, but more of an outside looking in role, maybe kind of removed from what's really going on. Right. How difficult is it for someone like Senator Lee to be an incumbent senator and at the same time trying to manage these candidates and a very factionalized Democratic Party?
Well, obviously she's in the trenches, right, with the Democratic Party, and being an elected official as a senator, and then the biggest challenge is she has 4 gubernatorial campaigns to unite. It's always a challenge when any of the parties have that. Right. And this is not the first time that the Democrats have had 3 or 4 running in their party. But I actually applaud her if she's able to coalesce and put them all together and unite them.
Right. Yeah. And so what do you guys be doing? Because everyone I'm pretty sure mathematically you would want at least one of those teams to kind of cross the river and maybe look at, you know, some of the things that Tenorio is doing.
Right. So I mean, we obviously will win the primary.
Obviously, a safe bet.
Safe bet, but we still have to meet a minimum number of votes, right? But we'll leave the Democratic primary up to the Democratic voters, or those that are voting in the Democratic primary, and then we'll come together after the primary. Obviously, there's only one of the four will advance, and depending on how united they are or how fractionalized they are after the primary will depend. But you know, with 3 weeks to go to the primary, has not been a lot of action or fire.
There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes,
I can tell you, yeah.
So, and I think that's the dangerous part.
Yeah.
Is behind the scenes.
Yeah, the Tenorio Attic campaign seems to be quiet right now, and I'm surprised that they haven't reached out a little more before the primary to try to woo
right.
you know, other Democrats, but you know, maybe that can be a teachable moment on.
But
they are. I mean, it may not be visible.
Right.
The campaign, the Tenorio Malta campaign organization is very well organized from the 2010 to 2014 campaigns, right?
Right.
So there have been and continues to be outreach to our counterparts in the villages,
right?
The rank and file, the rank and file Democrats, the followers of those teams.
And I think what's going on really is, instead of Tenorio kind of trying to steal supporters, you have Democratic camps trying to steal supporters from each other.
And I think that's the dangerous part for the Republicans, because we don't have a contest, and for any of those, one of those four to win the primaries, they need that extra votes from either independents or from the Republican Party.
Right. Republicans will get some of yours, the Democrats will get some of theirs.
So we've gone out on a aggressive educational campaign with our own base supporters, is not to play that game to go and help the other side. Ray Tenorio has to have a minimum number of votes to be able to advance to the general election.
And I think that Tenorio is playing it smart right now. I mean, Lord knows the administration and, you know, Lieutenant Governor, they've seen their share of controversy in their recent past, you know, and you know, laying low. I mean, he was just the acting governor, and we didn't really hear anything out of Adlub during that time. So I think they're playing it smart, just kind of lay back, you know, when there's a riot going on. Either you want to jump in there with everybody, or you want to kind of wait to the side and like, let me just wait a little bit, let a couple of these guys knock each other out.
That's strategic, I think, on their part, because this is not their primary, right? Yeah. And so it's best for them to shut up and wait for the controversy.
Smart play.
You heard it here first.
There you go. So, what about Sabina? I mean, this is you know, I interviewed her for a story I did about the types of government employees who can run without having to resign. She's a teacher. She had to quit her job. You know, I'm pretty sure if she doesn't make it past the primary, I mean, you got a new school year, they're probably always going to be hiring teachers.
Right. Well, I guess she gets to keep her tenure, her place in
her
place in seniority in the school. But there's no doubt that Sabina is smart. Yeah. She's a very intelligent candidate, and I think, as we can see in the previous legislature and some of the candidates that are running in for this bit, we need smart people. We have a deficiency of smart people running, unfortunately.
We have a deficiency of smart people voting.
Yeah. So you know, the people running are reflecting a lot of the issues that are going on with the electorate, and I think Sabina touches a lot of grassroots people, of course. She's been involved heavily in all kinds of and things like that. Of course, you can't beat her when it comes to education, because she's like for real in the trenches. I don't know if there is another educator that's running.
I think Dr. Taitano.
Yeah. But as far as the rank and file, you know, teacher at a public school, she's the only one. So
well, Melu is a retired teacher.
That's right. Yeah.
At Simon Sanchez as well. Yeah.
And I think that's something that you know, I admire Sabina. You know, I admire the conviction that it took. You know, and the commitment to wanting to be a senator for her to, you know, quit her job and step out there. I mean, you know, I talked with her. She basically had to give up her health insurance to do this. Yeah. So. But what I'd like Sabina to do, at least from you know, a campaign standpoint, is show a little more passion. and then maybe play that teacher card a little more, because you're right. We need more intelligence, but
Right.
Last time I checked, intelligence doesn't always win elections.
She kind of lacks a little bit of the personality.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because she's nervous, but that really plays a big factor when people do vote. Like I said, she was sitting next to Regine Biscoli, and Regine just was the light bulb. Clearly.
Very polished.
I will say that, like, on the couch, that may have been evident, but, like, with her work with Rotated Texan, the testimonies that she's done, the amount of research, taking that leadership role, you can tell that passion is translated in other ways. Something I really liked that she said, found it very interesting, was her own notion of using the scientific method for policy.
Yeah.
I thought it was unique and fresh, and just to see that this person who literally, like you said, quit their job, shows that dedication to come and bring that skill set into the policy realm and see how can I use this whole notion of making a hypothesis and testing it and then going back. It definitely seems like that's someone that would be good to have in political life.
And I mean, I've seen those testimonies you're talking about, and I mean, it just if she had bigger, more money to spend, and
Right.
I'd like for more people to see those testimonies, and that's something I feel like when she talks about 15 years being a community organizer and activist, and let's see that out there.
I hope she does make it past the primary, but if she doesn't, I think another senator would be stupid not to pick up somebody like that to work
Right.
in the
And she can always give it another try.
She can always give it another
This is her
try.
first time running,
Yeah.
and you're right. I think she has really good, genuine ideas. She appears sincere. I think the passion on the issues could be improved, because people pay attention to your sincerity of the issues. You can't just be talking about these ideas without
Right.
feeling it. Right?
It's an
Right.
oratorical game.
Yeah.
This whole thing.
And
That
she could come
aspect.
across as a very compassionate and passionate candidate.
And I think that, like, even some of the incumbent senators, especially on the Democrat side, the thing about Senator Lee is she knows that she's got to do those things. She's got to, she's got to have the Instagram video. She's got to have the the Facebook post, because that's and she's got to do the resolutions. So I think she's a real blend of kind of the old school, Ted Nelson type of candidate, and the new, like, you got to be media savvy. And I think
Right.
some of these other Democrats could, take some notes from.
Well,
from
being
her.
the head cheerleader for
Right.
the Democratic Party,
You know what I
gotta-
wonder?
Hey,
I wonder if Kendra got elected, would he adopt the media game? Because he talked today about not having a cell phone or being on Facebook for 2 years. I'm wondering that if he got elected, do you think that he would return to social media, or
I wonder.
I
don't
think he would
know.
have to,
Yeah.
just to stay on top of
Yeah.
what's going
I-
on. I mean,
I
that's
don't-
the game now,
I still don't really
It's still-
believe that social media is winning elections yet on Guam.
No, I don't think it's winning elections,
Right.
but I think just in general, for people to stay on top of what's
Right.
going on.
You
It
want to
gen-
take it to where they're
It
at.
really
Yeah.
influences people.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
for
And
sure.
that's
Yeah.
for those that are paying attention to social media, or only get
Right.
their information from social media.
Right.
From KUAM,
Yeah. Wink, wink. What do you guys think about the rent question? I thought this is as a guy who rents my home, I really do feel like this is a significant issue that, for whatever reason, our elected leaders have totally ignored.
Ignored it.
I don't know if it's I mean, I've seen some people in the community talk about it, but with the military buildup coming, it's only going to get worse for locals who rent. And not all the locals can afford to buy a house.
Right.
Some of us don't own land, and we're essentially being priced out of the market. And I've seen it. People know that whatever the military allowance is, and instead of asking for like a lower figure, they just go right for that 2,500 or whatever the number is.
Well, I mean, we just saw that they were fiddling around with having a property tax increase.
Yeah.
And so from a property owner standpoint, you kind of don't want to mess with the rent issue, because that's how you collect those taxes, is however much they're making off of it, plus the improvements that you put on top of the land. So if you're going to do that, you don't want to step on a landlord's toes, because that's your bread and butter if you're looking at it from a property tax point of view. But you're right. I mean, we just have free lunches in schools that was announced, right? And one of the reasons is because the communities, I think John Fernandez said, is something like 70 to 80% of the students are like below the poverty level. And
Crazy.
I thought to myself, am I that disconnected from reality on Guam? Like I didn't think that it was that high. And so, man, I mean, you have Hemlanis, you have places like that cater to that kind of socio-demographic, but the real issue is land use, you know, and how we allocate things, and then we have an issue again with the Chamorro Land Trust, which I think is going to play a big factor into how people are going to be able to afford to build houses on land that you know is allocated to them. And I mean, if you're going to have a place that where property prices are high, nobody's going to want to build affordable housing, you know, on a $2 million piece of property.
Right. Yeah.
But I do agree. Living in Hawaii for a few years, right next to Pearl Harbor, you definitely saw that, right? With the presence of increasing military, it's a guaranteed check, right?
Yeah.
I remember going to apply for apartments, and someone would show up in uniform, and it was almost like automatically I'm out.
Yeah.
Right. So I do worry, and that's something that I hope that the future legislature, as the buildup goes through, really think about that, because you said yourself, you're a home renter, it does affect you, and so I think that needs to be on the radar. So I'm glad that question was even asked.
I mean, you know, places like New York, or they have rent controls. I mean, are we, Jerry? Do you think that's
towards that?
Are we?
And it may be because with the buildup coming. I mean, that's just in the next 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, everybody's going to jack up their price. You could. I'm surprised that I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere like Hemlani's is not going to jack up their price just because.
But I think the problem is you have
availability.
I think it's like you have Hemlani's, and then you have like mansions, and like everyone like me, kind of in the middle. We're just like
right.
That's very
what is it like? An average price for like a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom apartment is what, $1,200?
Yeah, it's
$1,200.
Yeah, it's the same as San Diego, California.
Yeah.
Guam's housing price.
What did you think about the response to the question about adult daycare, right? Adult daycare services.
Daycare,
Interesting.
Yeah, because the RFP went out and there was no respondents, right?
Yeah.
And that's another issue to be concerned about. But I think what's missing here on the island is things like assisted living, communities. You know, as we age, our parents, you know, who takes care of these? Of the parents and the elders. We don't. In other communities, you go to retirement communities or assisted living communities. And other than St. Dominic's, you know, if you're very ill, right? And you have to qualify.
Yeah.
And it's really expensive.
Yeah.
And you know, I've had elders in my family. We're fortunate enough to be able to pay for, you know, live-in caretakers, but that is way above and beyond what the average family on Guam can do. And of course, so what happens to the extended family is that 1 or 2 people are going to quit their jobs in order to stay home with Nana. And, you know, that puts you in a vicious cycle, because now those people aren't, can't afford to take care.
Or even worse, they can't afford to take care of Nana, so everyone's working and Nana's stuck at home by herself. I mean, that's more.
And she's the daycare provider too for their kids when they get off school. So, you know, I think a lot of people bank on the Chamorro lifestyle or island lifestyle to take care of the elder problem, but that isn't a reality anymore.
It isn't.
And I'm surprised that we're looking at such like antiquated ways of taking care of the elderly. You know, you look in other places in the world, and they have a much more innovative system. I know that in Sweden, what they do is they offer the college dorms. So during the day, the manamkos are helping out at a daycare that's in the bottom of the dorm, and then during the evening, when the college students come home, they bunk with, or they're assigned with an elderly person to sort of, you know, give them that guidance in their life, and for the young person to keep an eye on this elderly person. And what you do is you get a little stipend both ways, and so it kind of it's actually fostering more of a community experience. And I'm surprised we're not looking at things like that instead of just the American model of you know, put grandma in Florida.
And Regine even mentioned something she wanted to incorporate, like the cultural aspect of like hospice care and assisted living. I'm very interested to know further what she meant by that, because I think that, you know, the Chamorro culture, you said there is that way, right, where, you know, growing up, you always used to hear, no matter what, I'm going to take care
Right.
of my elders, even if I have to quit my job. But, with cost of living going up, it becomes almost impossible to do that without really suffering.
Reality will make you blink.
Right. So I'm wondering, I would like to hear more from Senator Lee in regards to how she plans to infuse the cultural aspect into a renovated hospice care assisted living plan.
I want to ask you, when we talk about our culture, I mean, are we at a crossroads here where we're going to start, dumping off Nana somewhere, and I mean, is that because of is it westernization, or is it more economic realities? Because maybe I might be coming from left field, but I think the government has a responsibility to assist and take care of the Monumco, and if the RFP didn't get answered, then so be it. I don't
Right.
think that we need to shut down these adult daycares.
Well, I'll tell you from firsthand experience. So I founded a nonprofit, and one of the things that we do is we bury indigent people that aren't necessarily homeless, although majority of the people that we service are homeless, but it's people who weren't claimed. And the amount of elderly that I bury who I know their families, and these people just died all alone, or the family hasn't even bothered to claim their remains 30 days after they had passed away. You'd be surprised the amount that I go through. And so it is very much a reality that Guam is thoroughly westernized, and the complications of that with you work 2 jobs to take care of the kids that you never get to see. That's kind of a reality on Guam.
That's the American way,
yeah,
Adrian.
that's the American way,
Also,
but
you have both husband and wife having to work,
Yeah.
and you have your parents at home, and who takes care of them. And that's the other thing, is you don't have enough qualified caregivers or caretakers.
that's right.
Yeah.
On island. But I think it's got to be the government's role to not only take care of them, but to create an environment that will incentivize the development of
Right.
Industries,
Maybe
right.
those people
Beneficiaries
who are
take care of,
caretakers can get some kind of
Yeah.
welfare benefit, as their role as caretaker. Because I know some families, that's another problem. Well, if I'm going to quit my job, who's going to take care of my family while I take care of mom?
I think you need a Democrat president to make that
To do
happen.
that, yeah.
I wanted to
see
ask,
Trump.
was it Sabina who mentioned that she wanted to look into diversifying our tourism industry by
Attracting
Bringing
Monumco.
in,
Right,
yeah.
right.
That was kind of interesting. I'm not sure if she
Yeah.
meant there.
I mean, I know there's been talk about there's the dialysis, for instance, in Japan. Dialysis is very expensive there, right? But you've got
Medical tourism.
medical tourism, but you have these individual tourists, they're elders that have a lot of money, that are in the upper echelon of their society, right? And they need dialysis, but they'll come to a place like Guam, which is a U.S. jurisdiction, U.S. healthcare. That's what they're looking for. And I know there was discussions several years ago about developing some type of dialysis center in Tuban, exactly for that, bringing these Korean tourists, Japanese tourists, Taiwan tourists, because it is expensive back in their countries, but they want U.S. healthcare.
Not only that, but in their own countries, their birth rate is so low that you have all these Monumco who don't have families there. And I know in some places like Florida, which is like the geriatric capital of the United States, what they do is they give certain benefits to people who want to retire there. But part of the catch is that if you don't have family, all your assets are forfeit to the state if you pass away. So it's kind of incentive for them to want to do that.
Pretty depressing subject, guys.
Can I just, real quick, I just want to return to the notion of westernization. Very brief, but we just got to realize, though, that change also happened after the war, right?
Yeah.
After a lot of our land was taken, complete
Is this the
infrastructure
part where you
was
pitch
bombed.
independence?
No, I'm not going to. I'm not going to.
I feel it. I got my catcher, man.
It's coming.
It was like, find the moment, kid.
Right.
No, but that's all I'm saying is like that process of westernization, like the Chamorro life was completely transformed after the war when land was stolen, and then also agriculture, we shifted to more cash systems, and so all of those factors need to be considered rather than like we just fell for the trap, right? Like the material conditions were sort of transformed around us as well.
Well, I mean, just in my generation growing up, I mean, my grandmother, after the war, when I was born, we subsistence lived in terms of like she would make empanada, make donuts, and we'd be out there hustling, you know, selling, and so it was way different. I mean, she was able to stay home and, you know, make money that way. But now, I mean, you're right. You've got, you know, everybody in the house is working, and that's just to barely get by. So, I mean, there's much larger issues.
Like diabetes and
yeah, and that was
and
actually
sugar
brought up
taxes.
today.
It was. Yeah, they brought up diabetes, and but that's a pretty it's a gold mine right there.
Tax everybody that buys rice, white rice.
Right.
Yeah,
rice,
you know,
the
we
white
were
rice
all
too.
talking about this in the room, and you know, they're doing the sin tax, and they want to tax tobacco, and
Right.
they want to tax alcohol, and you know, I have libertarian leanings, and so to me, it's like I don't want a nanny state to tell me what I can and can't do as an adult, and I don't want to be taxed because you think that something is bad for me. If you want to look at empirical evidence, you know, Calrose and Pepsi and Coke, that's the real killer on Guam, right? High blood and diabetes.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm surprised that nobody will touch that sacred cow. And,
Yeah.
you know, sacred cows make the best burgers. So,
So will you vote for the legislator that first introduces the rice
yeah,
tax?
because
I tell you
brown
that
rice.
senator wouldn't get reelected though.
We'll give a tax
Or
break
elected.
for brown rice purchase.
Yeah,
rice
that's
cereal,
right. No
yeah.
taxes for brown rice.
No, I thought their answers were interesting. I mean, you know, again, Senator Regine's very concerned about the issue of diabetes, and I thought that she addressed the fact that, you know, we need to promote the younger people, you know, what are healthier alternatives. And you see it changing, right? I mean, fitness in general is
Yeah.
so mainstream now. So
I'm surprised she didn't touch on her Go Green campaign. You know, didn't she
plastic.
bring in
Plastic
the
bags.
plastic bags? And
Yeah.
I wish somebody would do that for plastic spoons and forks and foil,
Straws.
yeah, things
Oh, the
like
straws,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
Turtles.
Yeah.
You never know, she just.
You know
might,
that there's
you know.
alternatives already.
Pretty
for
sure
it,
it's on
but
her list.
I'm surprised because she really ran hard in her first bid for election for that.
On
And
that green,
she's not.
green platform.
She's not so hot on that right now.
And I think it's because we got the budget thing, so she probably wants to play
Distraction.
the taxes
Right.
angle, you know what I mean? And I mean, you know, you're right, presentation-wise, she was definitely the most polished. You know, being a critical thinker, I always look for the flaw. You know, many times, you know, it's a fault of mine. I look for the flaw before I look for the good in people. But, you know, I'm not really sure if I saw one in her performance
Oh
tonight.
yeah, no, she did an impeccable job.
They all have,
Right.
I think, whether it's this group or the previous ones, have all good, genuine ideas. Specifics are probably lacking because, justified so, because you don't want to bring your specifics up until you get
They're
elected,
going to
right?
get stolen, right?
Get stolen, so, yeah, they have sincere ideas, I think.
Yeah, I think for me, like with Regine, I mean, I already knew she was going to hit it out the park.
Yeah.
That's just Regine.
Yeah.
She's
Right.
really polished, like you all said. But I was really impressed with Sabina.
Yeah.
So I really liked her.
Sabina's smart. There's no
Yeah.
doubt about it. And
Absolutely.
again, we need somebody like that in the legislature, especially when you know look at the roster of the circus.
Yeah.
You'll see that yeah, we need somebody with a little
Scientific
brain power.
method,
Yeah.
not a mad scientist.
No.
Right.
You are really unimpressed with the slate of candidates.
What about Kenjo?
I think I got that.
He was kind of out there.
Kenjo is just, like I said, out of the box.
Yeah.
He's one of our out-of-the-box Republicans, you know.
Yeah.
But he comes from a very political family,
Yeah.
the Ada family, so.
Somebody commented actually, and it was a question for you, Jerry. It was, what antibacterial soap would you recommend I use to ensure that I thoroughly wash away human organisms? I was like, did I read that?
Well,
I
everybody
think it was a
uses
joke.
diet.
So Tony Luan.
That was I wonder if, you know, that was a little bit of scientific method right there.
That was, you know, I mean, I think Kenjo,
It's his master's degree, I think, that that gave you.
I mean, I've known Kenjo for many years. He's my cousin, and yeah, he's a very intelligent guy, very compassionate, and I'm not really sure that he said a lot of Republican things up here. I don't even know if they were Democrat things. They were really humanist, maybe.
Well, you know, that's what they say is the Republican part, the Republican governance here is almost like the Democratic governance in the States.
Yeah.
There's no philosophical or ideological differences between our two parties here, but the way they govern, the Democrats here tend to be more conservative, which is
Right.
the Republicans
Especially lately.
than
Yeah.
the Republicans.
Yeah. I mean, with this budget bill, you have, Democrats like, Mike Nicholas, Tom Addis sounding like diehard Republicans.
Lower taxes, no
It's
tax
crazy.
increase, and Republicans want to increase taxes.
Yeah, it's nuts. So I think Kenjo, I mean, I feel like he would get past the primary just, based on he has Joe Atta in his name. It's a pretty lucky charm right there. Right.
And if he did a great job in Georgia, then of course he's going to have a whole village's support.
Right.
I'm surprised he didn't really
talk more about
that or push that at the beginning.
Yeah, he didn't introduce himself as the former mayor.
Yeah,
what he did in Georgia, I think he should have done more there.
Other than he moved $2 billion assets.
I mean, after all, Georgia rules, right?
Yeah,
because he was a merchant marine.
Okay, $2 billion in assets. I thought, okay.
Very philosophical.
I did like that. I did like the global aspect of thinking. I always want that. I always look for someone who...
things washing up on your beach at Tagatsang isn't moving global assets around.
Well, I don't know what he meant with that, but you know what? The point I'm trying to make is I think that candidates who are sort of well-versed in the governance mechanisms and political systems of other countries around the world is something that is good for us to have.
And when you got past a lot of like the philosophical and this made me kind of like the head scratch and stuff, he was saying he's a grant writer. I mean, that's something that I think we're really lacking on Guam. I think there's a lot of money out there that we're not taking advantage of because, we don't, I think we need to do a better job of looking for that money that's out there, that's available through grants, whether they're federal or whatever. And, I think that's an interesting experience. And I thought it was very telling that Senator Regine, who's an incumbent senator, has thought about having a grant writer but doesn't have one, and maybe that's something that other incumbents watching are like, I got to go get me a grant writer now.
No, there's many. I understand from the administration there's many grants available to just territories like Guam that we don't take advantage of.
Yeah,
and we returned $44 million last year of unused money, right?
Yeah. Like, isn't the Guam State Clearinghouse? Aren't they in
Guam State Clearinghouse?
Yeah, but look at that. You got Austin Duenas, who. I mean, and no offense, I mean, dresses sharp, but I mean, this is a guy who could barely run the Chamorro Land Trust board, and he's running the Guam State Clearinghouse. And I think that's something where, Kate Baltazar was at the Guam State Clearinghouse, and she does really great grant writing. I know that La Morena said that, she brought a lot of money into DOC just based on the grant writing, and maybe that's something that, I mean, maybe this administration, for the remainder of the term, and then obviously the next one could really focus more effort on. Sorry, Austin.
I know. Boom. Any final comments on the candidates tonight?
I will point out two more things that weren't mentioned. I really liked how Sabina, she mentioned the connection between diabetes and contaminants in the environment. Yeah. I thought that was a really good point. Wow. If she's elected, I would like to see her pursue that. And also, I like Senator Regine's notion of exploring information technology as a form of economic growth. I think that was something cool she said.
What does that mean?
Well, I think she's talking about the fiber optics that are all laid out, right? How can we get more involved?
The cable.
How do we get more involved?
The cables. The cable.
We don't use that, I think, to its maximum.
Right.
That's,
So we could be like an international hub, like run your cables through us.
Yeah.
Right. They always say we
already do.
Wow,
we're known for our geography. How do we use it for
the
ourselves?
Democratic Party.
So, yeah, I really like those two notions, and I thought that those were ideas that are good to come out of candidates.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Sabina didn't go hard on what I feel like is her main issue, kind of the issue that a lot of people when they first heard she was running, it's like protect the military buildup. Yeah. And I thought it was cool that you had Dr. Taitsano, Ned Pablo, and these real like issue specific candidates coming on this forum, and then they really show how broad their knowledge or.
Well, I think that's what makes her a viable candidate. Yeah. Is that we all know that she's, into a particular issue, but she's obviously trying to broaden her base and trying to broaden her appeal, and good for her. But again, she really needs to kind of polish her.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, when the voter goes to vote, they don't necessarily remember or know what you said. But it just sounded, whatever you said sounded good.
They remember how you make them feel.
Right.
Yeah, you feel.
How are your eyebrows?
Yeah. And if you ask him, who did you vote for, why, he's a nice guy.
Yeah.
I like what he said.
What
did he say?
Right.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I like what he said.
Senator Dennis Rodriguez that's just the one guy who always sticks in my head is like people always say he's such a nice guy. You know what I mean? So, I mean, yeah, Tina Munia Barnes is another one, and you're right. I mean, sometimes on Guam we vote for people and don't vote for people for the most interesting reasons.
Janae, I like the way she made me feel. You know, she was really nice.
Yeah. Well, that's another Republican candidate who kind of is like a little outside the box.
Yeah, and Republicans have a lot of new faces, obviously because of all the vacancies, right? So we have a lot of new, not only new faces, but just candidates with just new ideas, outside of the box ideas.
Yeah.
And so that's going to bring a little difference, I think, into the legislature if they get elected.
And I think that's something you guys can really capitalize on because, organizationally, the Democrats have benefit. They have a lot of old school players, and not only in the gubernatorial camps, but in the party structure. And, what are you guys doing to kind of corral these senatorial candidates? Because, we've seen some bright spots, but I just feel like, are they getting the support and maybe mentoring them? And
so I mean, that's the role of the party, and we meet with the candidates. I think, this primary, we tell them, you're really battling against each other, right? We have 19 Republicans, there's 4 that won't advance. So the primary is really your campaign against each other.
Right.
Immediately after the primary, we'll launch our party platform. That will give a general description of where we want to take this island. And then the candidates will have their specifics on how they intend to accomplish economic growth, improve GMH or that sort of thing. But the primary is really the candidates' own campaign on their own.
Stand on their own, right? Yeah.
Because it's not, the party can't do everything for them. They made the decision to run, and they have to step up and take them to that next level to get elected.
So anybody can run under the Republican Party?
Well, today, with the way the law is, somebody can go get the petitions, file, and get qualified by the Election Commission. They don't go through the party to get approved or sanitized or any of that.
Okay.
But I took over the chair of the party. This is my second month, and one of the changes we want to make after this campaign, after this election cycle, is to tighten the who can run as a Republican. You can be a Republican philosophically or by title,
right?
But you need to espouse the philosophy and the
stay on message.
Stay on message, right? We can agree to disagree on some things, which is healthy, but overall, we're Republicans. We march together.
That's interesting because I feel like with the Democratic Party, it's almost opposite. It's like anybody, you have your conservative Democrats, you have your grassroots Democrats, and so I see you're trying to align the ideology.
Well, in the party, the Republican Party, of course, this is our 50th year. We've been 50 years since our founding in '68, and we've grown that tent. If you look at the Election Commission today, the number of registered Democrats and Republicans are just about equal.
Right.
Those that want to declare their party, right? But,
right.
I think our party has grown over the years, has recruited candidates that maybe have been Democrats before, or families that have been Democrats before. That's how we grow. They just don't wake up one day and become Republicans, right? So our party came after the Popular Party, which became the Democratic Party. We were the territorial party at the time,
right,
and then affiliated with the Republican Party. So I think in the years to come, you're going to see the Republican Party become even stronger and even more diversified.
I mean, just for the sake of competition and entertaining elections, I'm all for that because I really felt like the Republican Party was weakening and, just, I don't know,
out there,
a bunch of combinations of factors, you know what I mean? You had like...
We want to be able to stand for something,
yeah.
And not because we're philosophical or ideological here. Resolving the issues at GMH is not a Republican or Democrat issue or a conservative or liberal issue. It's resolving the issue, but we want to be able to become relevant in the sense that we stand for something.
Yeah, it's interesting you said conservative and liberal because these are terms that dominate national politics, but you rarely ever hear on Guam, which is something I like. I like that we haven't got to that point.
And in the past, it's always been 15 Republicans running in the senatorial
rarely
election.
Do we go over that 15.
So
recruitment has always been a challenge for the party. So this is one of the first years that we've actually.
And I like the diversity of and this I'm pretty much a Democrat, so I mean I can appreciate that you have a lot of different options in the party.
Yeah, I mean I've heard I've had elder party people that have called me up and says, why is this individual running? He's, this is not Republican what he's talking about. Well, what is Republican?
Right. I think some people in the Democratic Party should do that. Call up some people and be like, what are you saying?
It's basically how do we improve the lives of our people on the island, and that can't be a Republican or a Democrat issue.
So the three guests we had tonight sitting on the couch, when the smoke clears after the general election, what do you think are their odds of becoming us sitting senators?
Well, Regine has it in the bag. I don't think she has anything to worry about.
Top 5?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure for the Democratic Party, she's right up there with Therese Terlahi, and yeah, she'll do well.
Therese.
Sabina, I think, might make it past the primary because they only have to get rid of what, 4 or 5?
Yeah.
And judging from some of the other people that they have, I think she's safe to say she'll make it. Kenjo, I don't know. What do you have to say about Kenjo?
Will he make the primary?
Yeah.
I think he'll make the primary.
He'll make the primary.
Yeah.
He'll make the primary.
Yeah, I think with a lot of the top vote getters now running for other offices, I think you're right in your assessment that Regine will probably get top 5 votes. Yeah, I think hopefully as more people learn more and more about Sabina, they'll see that she definitely deserves to go through the primary and not be part of the 5 that are cut. And yeah, I think Kenjo's going to make the primary for sure.
Jordan is big.
Yeah. And I think Kenjo, because of his name, the other name, I think certainly will make the primary. The challenge is you're competing now with so many others in the general election. And that's a challenge for the Republican Party is how much money can be spent individually to get your name out and your platform.
Yeah.
And that's what people will pay attention to.
Well, like you mentioned, after the primary, that's when you start mentoring.
And the voters don't really pay attention until closer to the election.
Right.
2 weeks, a week out. Don't bother me before that.
Yeah.
You're just turning me off. So.
Well, for D18 tonight, our next round of candidates that will be appearing on Monday, we have Jack Hattick III.
Oh, yes.
Is he a teacher? Coach?
I believe he was somehow affiliated with the Department of Education.
Okay, yeah. Jack.
Previously.
Stephen Guerrero. I know he ran for mayor of Dededo, right?
He ran for senator before, too.
Yes.
Oh, no, mayor and senator, right.
It's umpire.
And then incumbent Talina Nelson.
All right. And our analysts are to be determined.
TBD.
All right. So, hey, on behalf of, Mr. Crisostomo, Primo Ken Kuper, and Adrian Cruz, my co-host Sabrina Salas Mazzanati, hope you enjoyed the after party with KUAM News D18. My name's Chris. Thanks for watching. Hasta adios.